Join me as we check out some of the most unbelievable things people actually got arrested for. Number 1. Having sexual relations with objects. Well, there's no way to put this lightly, but in 2008, an American man named Art Price Jr. was arrested for trying to mate with a picnic table. Apparently, it wasn't the first time. Some of his neighbors stated that he had an attraction to outdoor furniture. Verl Peter Dills is also a fanatic of sexual encounters with objects. So what's his weakness? Traffic signs. The police found multiple videos in his house of him in action with different signs. Number 2. Arrested for opening a Christmas present too early. In South Carolina, a 12-year-old boy was arrested for unwrapping his Christmas present a day early. He was so excited to receive a Nintendo Game Boy that he just couldn't wait any longer. His grandmother threatened to call police if he didn't hand it back immediately. A little frightened, the kid gave back the present. But his mother still contacted police and he was brought to the station. His mother, a single 27-year-old parent, wanted to teach him a lesson. Number 3. Refusing to give a little boy his ball back. Beware of little old ladies, as they can sometimes be cruel. An 88-year-old grandmother refused to give a kid his ball back after it landed in her backyard. It wasn't the first time Edna Jester found balls in her garden, but this time she had had enough. A neighbor threatened to call the cops if she didn't return the ball immediately. Hard-headed, Edna refused to give it back and the police showed up. Wait, what? You hear that, Mom? I'm calling the cops on you next time you take away my video games. Number 4. Arrested for too much twerking. In Lake County, Florida last year, a homeless woman was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct after allegedly twerking. It doesn't sound all that bad, but she did it in front of a school bus full of children. The arresting officer claimed she was also screaming profanities at the bus. The woman was released from jail after posting $250 bond. A month before, a YouTube video that was supposed to show a vlogger twerking in front of an Orlando, Florida bar ended up showing her getting arrested by an undercover cop instead. Number 5. Possession of SpaghettiOs. It began innocently enough for Ashley Huff. The 23-year-old was riding in her car when police in Gainesville, Georgia, pulled her over for a routine traffic stop. When cops searched Ashley's bag, they found a spoon that was covered in a mysterious residue. It was dirty. She explained that she had recently eaten SpaghettiOs and placed the dirty spoon in a bag in order to return it to a friend. Officers thought it might be methamphetamine, so they conducted a field test, which reportedly came back positive. Huff was charged with possession of methamphetamine and spent 2 weeks behind bars before more tests came back showing there was no traces of any narcotics. Number 6. An unflattering mug shot. Tanya Ann Fowler, a 45-year-old American woman, was not excited to find her mug shot on the cover page of the local newspaper. Finding herself ugly in the picture, she decided to call the police to make a complaint. This type of useless phone call to police is actually considered a crime for wasting their time. The police suggested she come back to the station to take a new picture, which she did, making for an easy second arrest. Number 7. Worshipping too loudly. Pastor Johnny Clark of Columbia, South Carolina, was a repeat offender for God. Last month, he was found guilty of unlawful sound amplification and sentenced to 2 weeks in jail for a regular and rambunctious Pentecostal worship service. That had brought police to his church more than 50 times. Neighbors had complained repeatedly that instruments played during the service were disruptive, and that Clark was still using microphones and drums despite a previous injunction against them. Wait, what? Maybe I should send an apology card to my neighbors for praying this morning. But seeing what people are actually getting arrested for, I am too scared I might just get arrested for that too. Number 8. Arrested for giving cats piercings. A 34-year-old American woman decided to pierce her kittens' ears, necks and tails. Her goal was to make them look more gothic in order to make top-quality products out of them. She placed them for sale on the web in hopes of making hundreds of dollars. She was almost immediately accused of animal cruelty. But this young woman pleaded not guilty, claiming she didn't see a difference between piercing animals versus piercing humans. Number 9. Farting is against the law. Farting in public is not very classy. But getting in trouble with the law over it may be a little bit exaggerated. Here's 2 stories in one entry for you. First, an American cop was convicted for farting on a colleague's face. Yes, criminally charged for a simple fart. That's law enforcement at its best. And in Florida, a 13-year-old student was arrested for shutting down the computers in class and for farting. Number 10. Having homemade soap. In another case of mistaken substance identity, 26-year-old Annadelle Cruz and 30-year-old Alexander Bernstein were booked on cocaine trafficking charges in Pennsylvania. When police officers refused to believe that 2 bars of homemade soap in her car were not actually cocaine. After being pulled over in Lehigh County, troopers said they smelled marijuana in the car. Cruz admitted to having smoked earlier in the day. When officers found the soap in the car, they tested it and it came back positive. The pair spent the next month in jail, presumably unable to post bail, which was set at $500,000 for Bernstein and $250,000 for Cruz. The charges were eventually dropped after a state lab turned up no traces of illicit substances. Number 11. Littering. When Brandon Ambergy flicked a lit cigarette into the middle of a busy street in Albuquerque, New Mexico, earlier this year, a police officer apparently saw it as an offense worthy of arresting the 31-year-old for. Ambergy was booked into the Metropolitan Detention Center, where he was offered a chance to post cash bail or bond or to be released on the condition that he appear at a mental health court. Ambergy didn't take these options, however, he remained in jail for nearly a week before being bailed out. Number 12. Spitting on the ground. Here's another common behavior that can actually get you arrested and jailed, at least briefly, depending on where you are. In one more ridiculous incident, Joseph Stoiber was confronted by a police officer while walking around his Florida neighborhood last year. It was around 2 a.m., and the officer was suspicious of what was in Stoiber's pocket. The cop asked if he could search Stoiber, but he refused. But the officer began to pat him down anyway, and then Stoiber, who had chewing tobacco in his mouth, spat on the ground. It was apparently enough to land Stoiber in jail, where he was released on a $250 bail. The arresting officer and another officer who later appeared at the scene were eventually disciplined for the pat-down and misconduct during their encounter. Number 13. Arrested for acting like a ghost. A young 24-year-old man was arrested for pretending to be a ghost. The young smart-ass thought he was being funny by scaring someone who was visiting a loved one's tombstone. The police concluded that he was under the influence of alcohol and his aggressive behavior led to the fine. Number 14. Possession of Jolly Ranchers. A New York City police officer who had presumably been watching a little too much Breaking Bad arrested Love Olatunjioho and 2 others in 2013, charging them with drug possession after finding some crystalline rocks of solid material on the suspects. Olatunjioho claimed they were Jolly Ranchers, still in their wrappers, but the officer thought they might be meth. Again, a field test reportedly took place and came back positive, which was enough to put them behind bars for 24 hours. When further lab tests came back negative, the suspects were released. The 3 later filed a lawsuit against the NYPD and received a $33,000 settlement. Let me know which one of these arrests shocked you the most.